And as you look at the cover crops now, like as far as your goals for planting, like how do you assess if, success versus failure with establishing the cover crop and whether or not it's meeting your goals?
With the success and the failure of the cover, you're saying?
Yeah.
This particular field has a really good even stand, right?
This is amazing cover
yeah,
crop
I know.
here.
That's
you couldn't ask for anything better. So
that's what everybody's after. I'm usually just after having something out there. And obviously we don't like the bare spots and we want the whole field covered, but just getting something is better than nothing. I would like it if it could look this way all the time, and it probably could if you do some type of drilling or incorporation after harvest, especially in the bean stubble. Corn stalks get a little harder because your fall window for growth and germination is so much shorter. But beans, if you really want it to look like your front lawn, an after harvest type of incorporation is probably the best for guaranteeing the best stand. I've also interseeded beans in that Labor Day time frame, and depending on the weather after that, sometimes that's when you see the more patchy stands in the field.
Okay.
This particular one, with the mild winter we had, the early spring, we finally had an early spring this year to let these start greening up and growing. We got some really good growth on this for being the middle of April already, and if we stay warm and somewhat moist, this will grow really fast, which is becomes a management thing for terminating. This going into canning peas, I don't want it to get too big because peas are a short season crop that I don't want too much residue out here, so I need to make sure that I kill the cover when it's still somewhat smaller before letting it get too wild and having to manage that residue in the peas then.
So yeah, we were measuring some cover crop heights before we started talking here, and there's about 8 inches of top growth on the cover crops here and about equal as much on the roots at least. And I guess, what do you see as the primary benefits of having a cover crop like this, or even something smaller that's in the corn right now?
First of all, you got something living in the soil now instead of waiting till planting, especially with the peas, because they'll be around the 15th of May. So there's at least 2, if not 6 weeks of time in there to take up some sunshine, get something growing, get the soil active, hold weeds back. I mean, anytime you get a nice stand of rye like this out here, you can always see, especially in fence lines, if you got too far away from the fence line, that's where the weeds are going to start growing. Whether it's the cover crop or the seasons we've had, I've seen better weed control now having the rye before the peas than I think the first year I did peas, there was no cover. We were just trying to let the canning company get used to doing some of the things we want to try, and they've let us do these things, and as long as we maintain good management with them, they're okay letting us do it.
So it's helping with weed control. And then something else I always think of with, when you start reducing tillage and adding cover crops is that, one reason we do tillage is to create that seed bed for planting.
Right.
Like, how important is that to have that cover crop there to build that soil structure so you have a good seed bed to plant into when you're not doing tillage or very minimal tillage?
Yeah, the cover is going to help create that structure and the lack of tillage. So the two together is going to start creating that structure. This spring, probably more than any other spring, I've noticed the top 2 inches of soil were really mellow, more than most years. And without the cover or without some residue protection, now you're prone to washing and erosion, wind, the wind's been blowing a lot. And so having the cover and the residue is going to help hold that until planting and growth of the next crop.